Jessica Alstrom, spiritual teacher, medical intuitive, and quantum integration specialist, answers your spiritual questions and assists you through understanding your personal process while providing tools and techniques to move swiftly through the journey back to light.
Good morning and welcome to the Transcendence podcast. This is your host, Jessica Alstrom, and today I'm going to be doing a podcast, a question and answer all about brain reentrainment. And again, this is just to kind of follow up on the numerous amount of emails that I receive with questions about how we do brain reentrainment and what is brain reentrainment and the different ways and techniques that we can repattern our subconscious mind, but also recalibrate our brain waves back into a healthy balance. And so I want to cover in the next hour or so all of your questions and give you hopefully answers that help you not only understand your brain-body connection a little bit better, but the way that we do brain reentrainment here at Transcendence that you could do in your own home or anywhere. And so first I want to talk to you guys about what brain reentrainment actually is, because when you understand that, of course, you are consciousness having a physical experience in a body, you have to look at your body as something that needs to be in sync with your desires and with your dreams. And when your brain and your body are out of sync or out of alignment with who you want to be, then what happens is a contradiction of life happens. And what that looks like is you desire something, yet your mind pulls you back to the past, or your manifestations are bittersweet because you're pulsing out vibrations and frequencies of a body that's been traumatized and is storing a lot of drama within itself, and then your conscious awareness has this desire to move forward and create unlimited freedom for itself. So that's the whole premise of why we really dive into brain reentrainment here at Transcendence. And obviously for me, that was the pivotal moment when I realized that it wasn't that I was limited, it was that my body believed in its limitations. And if you understand how Olympic athletes train, or the top 1% of the world that is considered famous and great, what they can do is they can get their body to a certain point, and then after that they have to actually program the brain out of more of a humanoid type of perspective and repattern it and program it to a superhero perspective pretty much. And it's all doable. I mean, the human brain is the most advanced supercomputer in the universe, really, because what it does is it is the holder of the past, present, and future. It is the container of not only your Akashic records, but your genetics, your bloodlines, your ancestry, and all of the universal codes and history, all are contained within the brain-body connection in its nervous system and its DNA. And so it is a computer that is constantly learning and evolving, and it has a storage unlike any hard drive that you could ever imagine. And so when you live a life that is unauthentic because you have been unable to choose your own path due to beliefs and circumstances, events, or doing the right thing in your practical life, then what happens is that kind of computer starts to get really backed up, because your desires are never going to go away. And you can try all kinds of drugs and you can try checking out in all different ways, but that urge that's within you, that spirit, that soul that is calling you forward, is never going to go away. And so if we don't clean up the contradiction between who you've been and who you choose to be, then what happens is you live a life that feels very idle. And 10 years can go by and you could find yourself being pretty much in the same situation or in the same relationship or in the same job, and it's maybe not felt good to you for the last 8 years, yet you really haven't done anything to really shift it because you don't really understand how to. And when the life becomes idle, it's a very kind of dangerous place to be, because you're kind of avoiding what's uncomfortable and you're avoiding being vulnerable. Yet at the same time, there's a lot of fear that kind of keeps you crippled and numb, so you can't move forward. And it becomes almost like mental warfare that goes on within the brain and body connection. So the whole purpose of brain reentrainment is to, go in and actually deliberately repattern the brain back to its initial blueprint of who you came to be when you were really opened and excited about life. So we have to take you back into that initial brainwave that you started off with, and that is the theta brainwave. And so I'm not going to do a training on the brainwaves in this on this podcast. I do have a YouTube video that's actually a video of me with a whiteboard, and I'm going through all of the different brainwaves. And I believe that is on our Transcendence Wellness Center YouTube page, and it is called Brain Reentrainment, BrainTap Mind Fit, and it's a video. And it's pretty old. I think I did it like 2 years ago, but it still holds up as far as understanding a fourth grade perspective of how your brain works. And I would definitely check that out as we move along today, just so that you have a reference of more of the science behind how the brain works. And so getting back into brain reentrainment, we know that 95% of your energy that is projecting forward is coming from your subconscious and unconscious data bank that is held within your biological computer. So that means anything that you've experienced, witnessed, practiced, been a part of, heard about, anything. And that's thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and all of that good stuff is still tightly contained into your database. Now, it is all throughout the body because the cellular memory of your body is holding on to stories, and your brain is making sure that story bank, that book that is held within you of your life, is all memorized, and so it can bring you back to a moment if you need to avoid danger. Okay, so that's why the brain is always kind of on high alert, and it's your natural problem solver. That's why you can get 15 compliments in a day and 1 negative feedback about, say, your outfit, and that's the one idea that you hold on to all day, because your brain's truest job is to keep you safe and keep you focused on, where the danger is, or where you need to be learning about something. And so it will focus on the problem instead of the positive aspects, because the positive aspects about your life don't need to be monitored. And so that's why sometimes you forget about the compliments, you forget about the positive aspects of things and people and your life. And that's why we have to manually move into gratitude at times, because the brain will be hyper focused on the problem that's at hand. And if the brain doesn't have a problem and it's really attuned to having problems, it will actually create problems for you. And we call that the worry mind, where nothing is really going on, but you're constantly worried about everything that could go wrong. It's the worry or the judgment of the past and worry of the future brain. And this happens because at some point, your life accumulated so many dramas and traumas, both chemically and emotionally, and as well physically. Every time your brain-body connection endures any sort of trauma, it kind of creates a little virus in the brain. And the virus is almost like now information is being cross-wired, and your brain and your body stop communicating the way that they should be. And that's when the body will start sending itself messages to let you know that there's distress. And that's all pain is. That's all your little aches and pains and headaches are. Now, if you let these messages go without looking at yourself and saying, hey, look, my body's giving me a message, without really working on healing the problem, what will happen is that little ache and pain will turn into an illness, and an illness can turn into a disease. So basically, it's unmanaged messages coming from your brain-body connection, and that's all dis-ease is a body that's not at ease. A diseased body is a reflection of emotional, chemical, and physical trauma that has gone unhealed for too long. That's it. So we don't want to think of the body as a scary place. A lot of us spiritual people, we want to deny our body and move into meditation, and we want to move into the higher realms, but You have a co-creative agreement with this body, and you're not making it out of here through ascension without it, because you are responsible for it. You chose it, and therefore you have a real obligation to honor and love it. And so what I want to do today is help you no longer have an enemy of your own body and mind, because usually most people is, all people, your greatest enemy is your mind. Your greatest critic is your own mind. Your biggest fears in life are coming from your own mind. 99% of problems that we imagine never manifest. So the more you worry, I always say looking at someone intuitively that is in chronic worry is like looking at a car that's driving 120 miles an hour down a road with the emergency brake on. It literally will burn out your hard drive. It will burn out your brain. It will burn out your nervous system. And you have to remember that you are a completely electromagnetic and electric energy system. Your emotional body, your physical body, your etherical body, it's all talks to each other through electrical circuits and energy. Okay, so when the emotions are out of control and you're taking something to numb your emotions, now you're no longer in communication with that emotional body, and all of that energy will start backing up onto the hard drive, and it will back up onto the physical body, and it will start giving you pain. It will start giving you symptoms, because you're not looking at how you feel. You're not being in communication with yourself, and therefore what will happen is the body will start giving you loud signals, because it's really doing the best that it can. But once that brain-body connection kind of goes out of alignment, that's when cravings are out of control. You really could be needing protein or water or healthy fats, yet your body is craving nothing but sugar. That is a symptom of your brain-body connection being out of alignment. And once that's out of alignment, it is like you're just having a feeling, it's moving into emotional state of being, and you're thinking that that emotion is true, and it's really kind of coming in through a computer system that now has a virus. And once your computer has a virus, you guys know how that is. It's like all of a sudden you start getting these random pop-ups, and your screen is freezing, and you're starting to get weird emails, and that is exactly what happens to the brain and the body connection once there's a misalignment of information. And let me take you guys back to when this actually occurred. And it occurs all throughout your life, because you could have honestly had a great first 7 years, or at least you thought they were great, and then you had your first relationship and it was very toxic, or it was very abusive, or it was very traumatic. But most of the time, what happens is when you're a little kid and you're in that natural place of being both in reality and imagination. I mean, that's how children live. The first 7 years is a combination of, 1 foot in physical reality and 1 foot in non-physical reality. And that is really a safe space for children, because they're trying to learn how to be here, but they're also practicing being able to create something else later. And that's how we create our reality, is through our imagination and visualization techniques. So we can't create anything new in reality. We have to actually go into our imagination and decide what we want to create, visualize it, imagine it, and then move into the action where the body comes in. So I hope this is making sense. So I'm trying to go off of your questions and answers, but also give you a little bit of a backstory of how our brains need re-entrainment in the first place. When you're in that place of imagination and reality as a kid, a lot of times our safe space is when we don't like what's going on, we'll go into our imagination, and that's like our happy place. Some of us have imaginary friends. Some of us can see things that are not there. Some of us dive into our storybooks and our fairy tales, or great movies, or video games at this stage in game. And that is our way of moving into our non-physical reality, so that we don't have to deal with reality. And that could be because there's people around you telling you who to be, how to act, what to believe in, even slap a name on you. So a lot of the times, the first 7 years is a conflict between who you choose to be and what everyone expects you to be. And if you don't really move into self-love that first 7 year cycle, right, then what happens is you start just kind of repeating that 7 year cycle over and over and over again, and then you become the adult who is basically, underfoot of a boss. So mom and dad basically just get replaced by your boss and authority and your government, and anyone who has authority issues had parent issues, parental issues, parents who were an authority and not, they weren't teachers, they were just your authority. And therefore, if you didn't have teachers as parents, guides, basically people who gave you roots and wings, then you're probably going to be dealing with authority issues. And we say that's an indigo thing, but that's everyone. I mean, nobody likes to be told what to do, So it all just repatterns and restimulates and reimagines itself and remanifests over and over and over again, because your brain is electromagnetic energy and you are in a relationship with law of attraction. So law of attraction is just repeating what the brain believes about itself. So if it believes that I'm always in conflict with authority, or I never get to do what I want to do, or I never get to be what I want to be, or my being in my imagination is bad, or I never have enough money because my parents didn't have enough money, then this is the way that your brain has built ideas and belief systems and mindsets about who you are. And because your reality is actually generated through the lens of your brain and mind, what you see outside of you is a reflection of what you believe deep within you. And so if we're going to change what's going on outside, we have to go in and change what's going on in the inside. And that doesn't mean your conscious desires are the problem. It's your subconscious and your unconscious programming from your entire life. Add your, tell me your age and then go backwards. That's how long you've been being programmed. And in order to reprogram that, you've got to be, first and foremost, you've got to accept that, willpower alone at this stage in the game, no matter how much you understand viscerally about your body, no matter what PhDs you carry as far as, understanding biology or biochemistry, you have to allow for, the unseen parts of the universe to be included into your understanding of your brain and body connection, because it is such a vast supercomputer that is literally the micro that is the universal macro, which is the universe is the macro and your human brain is the micro of that universe. And so it is completely unlimited in its design of learning and also unlearning. Okay, so if the brain learns something, then the brain can unlearn something. And it's not about reading a book to reprogram your brain, because all you're going to do is acquire more knowledge. And knowledge is not actually what reprograms the brain completely. It will get you about 20% more ahead than doing nothing at all. But we all know, how many of you out there understand, realistically how law of attraction work, yet still haven't mastered it? Or understand, that you are a spiritual being having a physical experience, yet you quite don't fully understand that you have guides and, non-physical energy all around you. So it's one thing to know, but there's reprogramming the brain is the only way to really be able to have that wisdom, which is more of a knowing, and it's more of like someone with practical experience. I always say, people will go to college for 4 years or 12 years to learn a trade, to make money, to be successful, to create joy and happiness, when all they really have to do is reprogram their brain back to that place before they hit that first 7-year cycle where they were completely unlimited, and reprogram the brain into non-limitation, open up 100% of the brain instead of the 10% of the brain that most humans are walking around using, and access the universal mind, access the field of potential, access the field of consciousness, and basically download any program that you could imagine, just like buying software. So it's like, for your computer, you want to learn how to edit photographs. So you actually go and you buy Photoshop and you download it into your computer, and now you are able to edit photographs once you learn how to do that. The brain is the same way. You actually can go into the quantum field of possibilities that you actually get to through a theta brain, which is a theta wave, which is your brainwave of imagination. So whenever you're meditating or you're, in a guided meditation or you're in a deep trance, you will be floating between alpha, theta, and delta in your brainwaves. And that's your deep level of basically brain reentrainment that allows your brain to stop judging everything and stop worrying about everything and stop trying to control everything and just allow information to float to you and through you. And that's how you learn, is you open yourself, you align yourself to the higher brain, not the logical brain, through changing your brain waves, which is all physical. And as you move into a theta place of, basically it's an awakened state of hypnosis where you are wide awake, conscious, yet you're in non-judgment. As soon as you're in that place of non-judgment, you have access to the entire universe. And this is where all the magic is. People say, oh, how do you know so much about quantum physics? Did you go to school for it? Nope, I just actually tapped into the field and studied a little bit of Einstein and visited a couple of other amazing scientists in my meditation and downloaded the information that I would need to teach my particular students, clients, and myself. So there was no opening of textbooks when you're accessing the field of potential. It is literally getting into a state of non-judgment, opening up yourself to a higher power and a higher understanding and a higher level of knowledge that is outside of what your brain has learned, and downloading whatever program that you want. I've done this with a class a couple of years ago where we actually went into a meditation and went into the field of possibilities and the field of potential, which is considered the quantum field, and downloaded a program on basically how to play a musical instrument, and then picked up the instrument and played the instrument with no formal training and nothing. So that's what the capabilities of your brain, meaning all you're doing is you're downloading a program, and then if you do that long enough, it will create a neural pathway, and a neural pathway is basically just a line of frequency within the brain that has learned how to do something. So you have a neural pathway that knows how to tie your shoes and drive your car and make certain foods that you know how to make and brush your teeth and take care of your body, and all of those things that are on autopilot that your brain knows how to do and your body knows how to do without you. You also have, 100,000 of those programs and neural pathways of sabotaging and negative behavior as well that you've picked up along the way. Just listening to your mom be in fear your whole life, you've picked that pattern up, you've picked that neural pathway up. So maybe you're not you didn't come here to be a natural fearful person, but you've picked up mom's influence and behavior or dad's influence and behavior, and that's created a neural pathway in your brain. And yes, it's connected to genetics, which make it even stronger. But if you didn't buy into or download that program because you weren't around them so much, then it would be a lot easier to change that particular program that's running. And that's what I would suggest is, so many people come to me and they just say, oh, I just can't, I'm stuck, I'm blocked. I can't move forward, I can't create this, I can't do this, I can't do that. And all I'm saying is you don't have the program to know how to do that, and you have the program of the opposite all within your brain-body connection. And see, when your brain is in beta, okay, which is kind of your action brainwave or your defense brainwave. So when you're in beta, that's when you're, being a defense driver, or you're having a conversation with someone that is becoming a slightly defensive. When you're kind of in fight or flight, that would be your brainwave of beta. Now, when you're in fight or flight, I'm just going to let you know, and this is probably 90% of the clients who come to me are in chronic fight or flight. Let me just tell you what happens is somewhere along the line, the first 7 years, you decided that you weren't safe to be yourself, or you weren't safe physically, or, nobody heard or saw you, or you didn't have the proper nurturing, or you didn't really learn what love was. And so you developed a worry brain. You developed a fight or flight body. And what fight or flight actually means is that your body is in survival mode. And so it is in constant high alert. And when your body is in constant high alert, it's running energy like crazy, and you're completely just dumping adrenaline into your whole system through thoughts. So every time you worry, you release adrenaline, okay? So And you could be worried about things that are not even happening. And so what happens is most people who would normally just be in fight or flight to move themselves in and out of a situation and then go back into rest and reboot, they are pretty healthy people. They have healthy mindsets, they have healthy bodies, they don't have pain in their body because they're moving in and out of survival as needed, which means a dangerous situation occurs and their body shifts into fight or flight and their heart starts racing, their palms get sweaty, the digestion completely stops and the immune system turns off, because what happens is the body needs to have all of its energy into its appendages so it can run from a lion. There's this great book, and I teach about it in my class, and I probably even talk about this in my brain class, but there's this great book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And you would think, okay, zebras, black and white, no camouflage, they're just out there on the prairie, bottom of the food chain, waiting for a lion, out there, and they don't have psychological issues or, any sort of digestion issues by nature. Because what they do is they're going along and they're just doing, what zebras do, and all of a sudden a lion comes out of nowhere and starts chasing them, and they shift into fight or flight where they have a bunch of extra energy. And their adrenaline is pumping through their body to make them be able to run very quickly. And most of the time, they could probably outrun the lion unless they were sick. And then as soon as that lion is moved away and the danger is gone, their entire system shifts back into rest, reboot, and repair. So digestion turns back on, immune system turns back on, and the brain calms down. And the reason why this happens is because the zebra is not judging the lion. The zebra is not going, what a jerk, how did he just come out of her? What if he comes again? What if he comes while I'm sleeping? The zebra doesn't have the ability to think in that type of worry mindset. It is all instincts for the zebra, and it is all about the present moment. So a zebra is living completely in the present moment and doesn't need to be worrying about danger until danger presents itself. And now you're seeing the problem with humans, because we have the potential and the ability to think past, present, and future. And what happens is the present moment completely gets eliminated when we have had a lifetime of fight or flight. And when you learn fight or flight as a kid, it becomes chronic. And as soon as fight or flight becomes chronic, you're going to have allergies. You're going to have immune system issues. You're going to have digestion issues. You're going to have headaches. You're going to have aches and pains. You're going to be that sicker person, because if your body can never get back into rest and reboot, then because it's never safe, because as soon as you're out of danger, you're worrying about the danger, or you're judging the danger, or you're concerned about what could happen in the future, and you're judging what happened in the past, and you're constantly living and regenerating and rethinking about and reprocessing and reanalyzing that feeling that had occurred, then what happens is the brain becomes glitched, and the brain can't move out of beta on its own, which means you have a really difficult time imagining anything that's not, you can't imagine new. You can only imagine what's been. And you can't move into theta. You can't move into alpha, which is another state of basically a awakened state of hypnosis. When you watch TV, your brain goes into alpha in 10 seconds because you're becoming this big sponge. And a body that's been in fight or flight too long will actually have a lot of sleep issues. Because think about it, if my brain thinks that I am not safe, then my brain has to stay in fight or flight, which means my nervous system has to stay in fight or flight, which means that I can never take my eye off danger. It means I have to be hyper controlling. I have to be constantly aware of my surroundings, and I am running high levels of energy. So my body does not no longer how to rest. And so what happens is, as soon as my body forgets how to sleep naturally, then there's been so much adrenaline moving through my system that by the time that morning hour comes when I should be waking up, I'm waking up out of a non-sleep state, and my body is so completely fatigued because I have been just running energy all night long because my mind won't shut down. And then I never move into delta. And if your body never moves into delta, or your brain wave never moves into delta, your immune system can't turn on and fire up its cleaning crew and detox you properly. because it needs you to be consciously out of the way to really repair your body. Your body knows what to do to heal you. But if your mind is always in constant alert, it can never do what it was designed to do because you're constantly just dumping more adrenaline in your system. And just from nutritionally, let me tell you what adrenaline does to your body. Now, if, a lion were chasing you and you were to run away from it, then all of that adrenaline would be channeled into moving, and you would be running, and you would be burning off that adrenaline. Your body would be becoming very acidic, and through running and moving and basically shifting your body around, you would be burning through that adrenaline. But that's not really the case in modern humans, because there's no lions chasing us. There's just a boss yelling at us, or the bills that show up, or the fight that we had. And so what happens is we sit in a chair and we have all the adrenaline moving through our brain body that would happen if a lion was chasing us, yet we're not moving. And so all of that adrenaline just recycles through the whole body, and it creates a very acidic body. Now, I'm sure you've heard by now that, disease cannot exist in a body that's not acidic. If a body is alkaline, which is its natural balance of flora and fauna, disease can't exist. But that's why I say that all disease comes from worry. It comes from stress. Because what happens is chemically, you're releasing so much toxic acid into your body by dumping so much unneeded adrenaline all throughout your day by worrying, that the body becomes so acidic that it begins to attack itself. Okay? And so there's not just, this is not just a spiritual talk about how to retrain your brain. This is this is a physical repairing podcast, because if you can get your brain out of fight or flight, then your immune system can turn back on again and do what it was designed to do. Because I tell you, the immune system can kill anything when it's working properly. It can totally rebalance you. That's what it was designed to do. It's a lot smarter than any human. Okay, it is the universe in human form. Basically, that's what your nervous system is, and that's what your immune system is. And so it can do anything if you can get out of your own way. So that's just, what happens when we're in fight or flight. So if you just did brain reentrainment to just stop your worry mind or your stress mind, then your life would completely change. Because think about if you could figure out how to deal with stress differently. And, I've told my story for years that I had an eating disorder my whole life. And when I was a little kid, my body would get stressed out, and I would turn to food to calm me down. And so probably most of us have some sort of security blanket that we use to handle stress, whether it's, food or TV or alcohol or people or drama or whatever you use to satisfy your own stress in your brain-body connection. Most of us turn to something outside of us to de-stress ourselves, and mine was food. And so every time I would get stressed out, my brain and my body would tell me that I needed food to calm myself down. And that can be very destructive to your health when you're using something like food to satisfy you emotionally. And because you're not eating the right foods, obviously, and you're not eating the right amounts, obviously, and then you fall into that shame and guilt cycle, and then for a while when you're not stressed, you lose weight, and then you gain it back, and it's very hard on the body. And that was kind of my life for the first 30 years. And because that's how my brain dealt with stress. So when you're retraining your brain, basically what you're doing is you're retraining your brain into being able to deal with stress and challenges differently. It's very important that I say that, because challenges are not necessarily going to go away, but how you see challenges will change. Your perspective of challenges, your constant worry will stop, your fearing of the future will go away. And that's just one thing that brain reentrainment does, is it brings your brain and body back into balance. And when you're in balance, you can handle difficult things. You can handle, challenges. You can handle issues. And when your body is not dumping, 30,000 chemical reactions from one thought into the system, your hormones aren't going to be out of alignment. You're not going to have aches and pains. I haven't had aches and pains in my body for at least 5 years. It's like I don't have backaches, I don't have headaches, I don't get pain in the body. And that is because I live in the present moment. And if challenges are coming my way, I deal with them when the challenge comes instead of worrying about it. So I would say that stress is probably 99% of, the cause of most diseases and unwanted health issues. And it's all how your brain has been taught to deal with reality. You had this vision of who you were going to be when you came here, and then it got completely distorted about who you should be and what everybody wanted you to be. And that's when you became at war with yourself and you lost your brain-body connection. And then manifestation was difficult, imagining was difficult, visualizing was difficult, relationships became difficult, money became difficult, your own body, being able to control your own body became difficult. And so if anything is difficult in your life, it's just basically a virus in your computer. And the way that we do brain reentrainment here is, well, first let me step back, because you do not have to use, our particular device to retrain your brain. There's awesome inventions out in the world. But going back to my personal journey, I always want everyone that I work with to go faster than I did, because I kind of had to learn as I was going. It was a lot of trial and error, and it was very lonely, and I didn't really have a support system. And so I had to try a lot of different things. But I understood the science of brain reentrainment early on, and I knew that if I was going to kick my eating disorder and my victim energy and my lack mentality and my judgment, that I was going to have to go inside and do some rewiring, And so for me, what I did was I started with meditation and breath. And for someone who has a racing mind, meditation is almost impossible, because you can't shut it down enough to get space. You can't shut it down enough to really get quiet. And if you can't get your body quiet, then you can't turn your immune system back on. You can't turn that spirit signal really back on, or at least you can't hear it, because ego is very loud and the mind is very loud, and your higher self is very subtle and more whispering, because it's patient and it's waiting on you to quiet down to really take its command. And so if you can't quiet your mind down, you're not going to be able to do much with your life. So I did that through meditation, and through meditation I was basically, setting intentions to change neural pathways. And that took me a while, because I was setting intentions. I want to change this neural pathway. And then I would go into a meditation and I would breathe it and I would change the stories. And that took me, honestly, it took me about 18 months to clear out a lot of my negative belief systems. And so when I met Patrick Porter, the inventor of the BrainTap system, and read a lot of his clinical research and tried the device, what I realized is that in one session, it did for me what I spent 3 months doing in meditation. Because the BrainTap system that we use here has really thought of every single component of how the brain-body connection works. And there's, binaural waves and beats have been around since the beginning of time for you to basically repattern your brain waves. But if your body is in chronic fight or flight, then your brain will not accept a new program, because your body has to feel safe in order to learn something new. Otherwise, it will be on heightened alert, and it will only know what it's known in the past, because it can't stop to learn something, because then you'll take your eye off danger and you'll move out of survival. And what if you're not safe? Because the thing that the body fears the most is to be blindsided. And so the brain stays in high alert, and therefore it will not learn new patterns. So you could do a brain reentrainment, off of YouTube, and your nervous system will still be going crazy, and you won't get what you really needed from that. So you've got to do a lot of nervous system work at the same time. And if you've seen me demonstrate this device, it's so cool, because as a medical intuitive, I can see before and after the brain. It's kind of like those old commercials they used to have, your brain on drugs and your brain off drugs, like what it looks like. And looking at someone using BrainTap, what I'm noticing is, first and foremost, they are literally unplugging from the matrix, which they are plugging back into higher self. Their brain is manually being put into theta within 3.9 minutes, is about the average that I've noticed watching someone. And when your brain is in theta, you are in a state of meditation, and maybe for the first time. And your conscious mind can be thinking about the laundry or where you have to be in 20 minutes, but your subconscious mind will shift into meditation and start rewiring, which means a lot of neural pathways that you've built up that you would call sabotage or avoidance or lack of motivation or desire will start being rewired. And as that starts to rewire, we're not programming you to be someone you're not. We're actually putting it back to its original blueprint so you can come here to be who you want to be, who you've always come to be before reality, society, family, religion, and the media programmed you in the first place. So not only are we working on retraining the brain and creating new neural pathways, but we are getting the nervous system into that place of reboot, repair, and detox. And for chiropractors out there, they would call it the perisympathetic nervous system. It's the side of the nervous system that heals you, reboots you, and empowers you. And the other side of the nervous system is your fight or flight. And then that is your basically fight or flight. Exactly. It's like putting your body into a heightened state of awareness and defense so that you can move out of danger. So you have two sides of your nervous system. And what we're doing while we use the brain retrainment is we're just putting your brain back into that perisympathetic, which is that rest, reboot, repair, regenerate, because that's where your anti-aging happens. That's where your breath starts to stop becoming shallow like it's always been because you've been in fight or flight your whole life, and you start to deep breathe again. Your headaches go away. Your sleeping patterns increase. You're dealing with stress in healthy ways. You're no longer using an addiction to deal with stress. You're not getting triggered in social situations because you're not constantly on the defense. You're not taking things out of context. You're having great ideas. You're having inspirations. You're, manifesting your desires instead of your fears. And so that's a lot of what happens. And without retraining the brain, you're going to have to do all of this on knowledge from books and willpower. And I'm saying right now that there is nothing that you can out willpower when it comes to the brain because it's been on automatic for so long. It's about 10 minutes ahead of you all the time about what your next move is going to be based on the wind, weather, and how you feel hormonally. So you could be setting an intention in the morning to go exercise, and by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you're finding yourself in bed eating because your brain is going, nope, this is how we deal with stress. Nope, this is how we deal with life, and it's always been this way, and it will always be this way. And so your consciousness is like, man, sabotaged again. So you have to take responsibility for what your brain believes you to be. And just because you're studying, higher levels of consciousness does not mean your brain and body know who you are, because you haven't programmed it. It took you a while to walk, it took you a while to drive, it took you a while to tie your shoes. And teaching your brain how to be the new version of you is going to take a little bit of time. It's like I say meditation should be more important than brushing your teeth. Because if you were in meditation, every day, then you would never manifest anything that was out of alignment. Not that you shouldn't brush your teeth, because please do. But I'm just saying it should be as important as brushing your teeth once or twice a day. Because most of us have smartphones by now, and we know what happens if we have too many apps open on our phones or our computers. Things run really slowly. Well, you have to consider that you have apps in your mind, and I call those stories, and they're the stories of what's happened, what could happen, what's happening, and what is happening in the world, what's happening with other people. And so you have so many apps opened that your system is running so slow and so acidic that you have pain in your system. Okay, so you got to start closing out some of the apps. And meditation is the only way that I've ever known biologically to really shut down and close out apps. And if you can get the nervous system on board to help get the body into that place that feels safe. See, your body needs to feel safe to heal. Like if you're in a toxic relationship, I don't care how much chemotherapy you take, it's not going to kill your cancer because you're in a toxic relationship, so you don't feel safe. So your body's not going to feel safe, and therefore your body's going to take that signal, and law of attraction is going to respond to that, and you're going to attract more things that don't make you safe. So it's almost like you have to understand that the brain is constantly looking around, judging its environment, deciding whether or not you're safe. And if you're constantly worried, then you are not safe. So it's not what you put in your body, it's how you think. And if you can't change the way that you think manually, then you need help. You need guidance. You need something. That's why I love this system, because it goes behind your back, basically, and it moves your brain into a different brainwave where you can be more of yourself. And as soon as your brain starts to move into that theta place time and time again, it will remember how to do it from when you were a child. And you'll become a lot more optimistic and a lot less of a worrywart. Your body will begin to heal. And you'll be able to see the world from a new perspective. You'll be able to be that positive person naturally and organically. And that's why we do brain reentrainment here. It's because, it's like I've worked as a life coach for more than, 7 years. And, I get to be with that person 1 hour a week, and we try to do as much work as we possibly can do in that 1 hour. But that means 23 hours a day, 7 days a week, you are left with your own brain that's been programmed for 30, 40, 50 years. And so it's almost like I can help where I can help. But at some point, you have to take responsibility and say, what can I do when I'm not with my coach? What can I do when I'm not reading my books? What can I do when I'm not, And so that's when deliberate healing comes in, because you're using the system to help repattern what you didn't really program in the first place. It was programmed for you. When you're a little kid, you got to kind of go along with life in order to survive. And you got to adapt, and you got to learn how your surroundings work. And most of us learn that if we worry, then we won't get blindsided. If we are always hesitating the next move, then nobody could hurt us, which is exactly opposite of what happens. But that's what our brains believe. And so taking responsibility as a conscious being for your brain and body connection is how you're actually going to become a form of enlightened being. Because if you don't take responsibility for the programming of the past, then you're just going to be someone with a head full of knowledge who really can't move. You won't have motivation. You won't know the answers. You won't have the right people around you. And so when I started doing brain retrainment, when I started using Patrick Porter's device, it just accelerated my journey so fast. It helped me be a better parent, because you know how we worry as parents. And it helped me learn what wealth was. Because see, the thing is as a kid, I was really poor. Our family was. I mean, we had food, but it wasn't like, I actually, unfortunately, had to live in kind of a really rich community. So I was always in judgment in comparison of what I had versus what other people had. And I think that it was actually harder than maybe growing up with just other kids in my situation, because I really felt the contrast of what other people had versus what I had. And I thought it was me. You believe as a kid that everything's about you. And so I thought it was just me that couldn't have those things. And so as I got older, I would watch people around me get all of these things, and I never had them. And so I didn't have that wealth mindset. I had that poverty mindset. And I was a really hard worker, and I had a great work ethic, and I worked harder than most people, and I just got by. And when I started doing the brain retrainment, I had moved through a lot of my childhood issues, so I actually used the BrainTap to teach my brain what a wealthy brain felt and what a wealthy person acted like. And did 2 months of the brain retrainment, the whole entrepreneur series and the wealth series. And within 6 months, Susie and I opened our second center with no debt and no financial help. It was just, the money just came in because we started to see ourselves not as that struggling small business, but as an empire, and as building a legacy for our children, and for building a place for community. And we just became very unlimited with our business, and people started coming out of the woodwork that wanted to work with us and invest with us. And it was like less than 6 months, my entire outlook about money had changed. I also used it to help my eating disorder. And I had done a lot of that in meditation, but it took a lot of time because it was so deeply ingrained. It was really a security blanket for me. And so I did the healthy eating and the weight loss series. And to this day, I can't pick up food for stress. I can't eat for stressful reasons. Doesn't mean I don't like to eat, because food's good, but I don't eat for stressful reasons. And therefore, I don't have that constant war of myself. I don't hate myself every time I eat something. And so it's really given me my self-love back. And those are the two programs that I can just say personally that have really just changed my world for me, because you don't realize that when you're under the hand of addiction, how much it rules your life. You know, it's not like regular people who can just go about their day. It's like we are thinking about our addiction 24/7. And it is, it's like being in a jail cell of your own head. And so that's what I've used it for personally. Not to mention, you know, the grief series. I've gone through the grief series several times, just because you know, this process of enlightenment, you tend to lose people in your life sometimes. And done that, and actually wrote that series with Dr. Porter because I was having a lot of people come in and tell me that they had lost people recently. And so I wrote the program, sent it to Dr. Porter, and he recorded it and put it into his BrainTap system. So let me tell you just clinically how the device works. It's using light therapy, sound therapy, which is frequencies, and it's repatterning frequencies that heal and rewire. And the lights in the ears are the cutting edge technology, which is, there's no comparison. There's no comparison of this device with any device that I've seen in the world so far, because trust me, I'm in the market looking. And the lights in the ears actually work in the meridian systems to give you an emotional release as well. So it is the equivalent of having an acupuncture session when you're using the headphones that Porter provides. And the lights in the eyes are in sync with the music affirmation and the subliminal hypnosis that you're listening to while you're going through the device procedure. And it helps repattern the left and right hemisphere back into a healthy blueprint, and helps you move back naturally into imagination where all your immune system and all those goodies rely. And if you have seizures, I'm just going to warn you, if you've bought a BrainTap system and you have seizures of any kind, please do not use the lights in the eyes, just because it can actually bring on the seizures in the beginning. But I've used this on my daughter, who has absent seizures after a vaccination issue about 4 years ago. And it's really helped us big time with her left and right hemispheres, because seizures are all neurological, you know. I would say everything is neurological, honestly, because of the way that the brain controls the whole body. I mean, think about it. Chiropractors work on the nervous system, but the brain is the nervous system's tail. So, I mean, it's the brain, you know, it's like the nervous system is the brain's tail. So it's like it's all connected. And you can't really fix the nervous system without fixing the initial hard drive. And that's why so many chiropractors have the BrainTap system into their practice. Susie and I have gotten this all over the world and put this into all different kinds of holistic centers, and we've put this into the military because this is the thing that helps PTSD faster than I've seen anything else work. Because again, PTSD resides within the brain. It's the trigger. It's the brain has been under some sort of trauma, and it has a glitch. It is moved into that place of needing to be in fight or flight, and so when that PTSD triggers, the brain goes right back into that trauma and starts reliving it, no matter where it is, how it is. Even if a dream brings it on. Susie tells a story about her dad was in the military and in the war, and they were out camping one weekend, and they were in their RV, and they were sleeping next to each other, and he woke up out of a horrible dream and pulled a knife on her from his PTSD. And so, you know, that was his trauma reactivated, restimulated, and we later had to do a lot of time travel with Susie because that was her trauma from her own dad, you know, pulling a knife on her in the middle of his dream, which obviously he didn't mean to do, but he was right back on that battlefield in Vietnam. And so we are using this in the military. We have clinical studies at the hospitals here in Kansas now that are trying to bring this in for not only cancer patients, but diabetes, Lyme's disease, all autoimmune diseases, Alzheimer's. Because, you know, think about it, everything is neurological at the base of everything. And people, you know, come to me and say, oh, I have hormone issues. And I said, no, you have thinking issues, because you can't release a hormone without a thought that triggers a hormone. So think about something sad, you'll trigger those hormones. Think about something scary, you'll trigger those hormones. Think about something, you know, environmental, that'll trigger hormones. And you don't have to necessarily have thought that's generated by you. Thought can be generated by your environment. You know, it's like most of my childhood happened in Los Angeles. And so when I get off the airplane to go visit family, I move into those feelings because of my environment. And so geography can trigger PTSD. Smells can trigger PTSD. tones of people's voice can trigger PTSD. And I say if you had a childhood, you have PTSD, because every child endured some sort of physical, emotional, or chemical trauma that will trigger you in your now moment, even as adults. Okay? So this is why I do brain reentrainment at Transcendence Wellness Centers. It is the thing that I have gotten, besides my coaching and my regression processes and my shadow work, it has gotten me the most amazing testimonials. And the reason why is because, again, when you're not working with me or your coach or your therapist or whoever you're working with, this is something that you could be doing within your own home. And, you know, if your brain is always 10 minutes ahead of you and it's learning who you are based on how you think and where you live and what you do and how your behavior is, then if you had one of these systems in your house and you used it regularly, then your brain would be wired that your home was a space of healing. Because the brain, it equates itself with your behavior. So if like a runner who runs 5-10 miles every day, you know, gets up in the morning and just walks past its running shoes, the brain looks at those running shoes and it moves into that state of getting ready to run. So the brain is already wired for what you're about to do or what you could do. Even if you weren't going to run that day, your body will start shifting into that runner's body. And so I have the BrainTap in my house, in my sanctuary space, which is a corner of my bedroom. And every time I walk in my room, my brain says, oh, this is where we go to heal. And so the healing actually happens from the placebo effect. Even before you put the device on, people drive to our center. As soon as they drive up, their brain is moving into that placebo of, oh, we're getting ready to heal. Because the brain does not know the difference between real and imagination. And I've said that in every podcast. And so I hope this is making sense. The thing that I've been really working on with Patrick Porter recently on this BrainTap system is it's not just a magical healing tool with 5 different modalities of healing, because it is light therapy, sound therapy, brain reentrainment, hypnosis, affirmations, light and binaural waves, okay, as well as the equivalent of an acupuncture session, a massage therapy session, and a hypnosis session, okay? So, but what we've done was I was a single mom for a really long time, and so I found myself doing a lot of small businesses from home so that I could be with my kids before I learned all of this. And I really wanted to develop a system with Patrick Porter where anybody could have a BrainTap business, and it's something that Susie and I have practiced over the last 2 years, is how to build this BrainTap business, not just for our own centers, but for other practitioners and other, for veterans who, maybe are in a wheelchair and they can't get around. They can build a small business using BrainTap right from their own home. Or, they could have a little BrainTap station somewhere where they just have, 2 devices and they're just doing healings all day. Because if you own a license to distribute this system, and you're charging $25 to $30 a session, 3 hours a day, 15 hours a week, you make $6,000 not leaving your house. To me, that felt really good, being able to develop that with Porter, so that, the average single mom could heal herself first, get her testimonial, and then create a little BrainTap business right from her own house or right from a rented space at a salon, or fill in the blanks. What I'm doing is I'm also teaching my life coaches that are in my certification all about brain reentrainment, so they can add another tool in their toolbox. Once they're coaching, they can actually put their clients on BrainTap themselves and not just get the accelerated healing and testimony that the BrainTap system gives you, but it also creates more income for you and that you can do anywhere in the world. And so if you're curious about that, please reach out to us, because we're doing a lot of training right now. And we are excited about putting this meditation healing device in as an extra tool in every practitioner's toolbox for accelerated growth, healing, and expansion. So please reach out if you have questions about the device itself or learning how to work with us as a licensed practitioner. And you can reach out to Susie at Transcendencekc.com. And you can reach out to me, Jess Alstrom, at Gmail, and if you have any questions. But I hope this made sense. and reach out and check out my other video because I do go into more depth about the brain. But this is more of just a question and answer of what I've been getting a lot via email from a lot of you, and I wanted to just make sure that you had some extra information today about why and how this all works. So thanks for listening, and we look forward to chatting with you soon.
Thank you for joining Jessica on this transcending episode. Email us directly at jessicaalstrom@gmail.com with your questions and personal challenges you would like addressed on the show. And join us on next week's podcast. You are not alone, and remember, your higher self speaks to you through people, places, circumstances, and events.